if you think about it, no biotech these days can form without synthetic organic chemists, and it undergirds every industry, as I mentioned in my slides, that exists today, requires synthetic organic expertise. So the Industrial Revolution is happening. Now, whether it will lead to something extreme of the type that you see with iPhones and automobiles will take time, because science moves at the rate of a glacier. If you check science today and then you check 1 year from now, you'll say, wow, not that much progress has been made. But if you check it every decade, it moves in leaps and bounds. And so I think if we fast forward 20, 30, 40 years, where every molecule can be made through simple strategic bond disconnections where all the reactions or nearly all of them are known, then it will allow for an industrialization and an automation that will be similar to what is seen with Apple's iPhone or automobiles.
Yeah, actually, by the way, this question is from the audience. So basically, I'm trying to help the audience to walk into the brilliance of mind just for a few seconds, a few minutes, to see how these minds work. Basically, that's why I'm asking a question for you guys, for the audience, okay, the following question. So maybe the same question should go to Xiaoguang Lei first, because you're organic chemist, right?
Yeah. So in my opinion, I think organic synthesis is so fascinating. That's because it can create new things, like Phil said. So I think you just like playing like a god. You create new things. I think for the industry point of view, I think our organic chemistry really a driving force to push forward the industry development, because you can use organic synthesis literally to make infinite molecules. The only limitation is your imagination. So that means you can make so many molecules, and you have so many tremendous opportunities to discover new function. I think the new function is very important in terms of to discover new medicine or new functional material. That's really a driving force for the industry.
Yeah. Maybe someone wants to add. Anyone wants to add? If not, Huang Liu, you want to add?
So I guess you expect me to say like AI is going to be next industry.
Oh, you will have an opportunity to say more about that. Yeah.
But I never think so, because it's like compare with AI or the NI. I mean the nature intelligence, right? AI is just a tool. It's just a computer tool. It helps us, but it's never going to become us, or it's part of us in the future, right? So I don't know. Some people say AI is the next big thing. Some people say biotech is the next big thing. But I just think, all the thing is going to be the next thing, but who cares which one is bigger or not? It's all the same.
Sure. It's just all about science, continue to chase. Yeah.
Exactly.
Freud, you want some?
Yeah, there's a particular aspect of it. I don't know if it's the Industrial Revolution per se. That was a specific thing. But in terms of just a revolution, absolutely. I think that, and my particular, the whole role of tools. Sure, they're just tools, but tools have turned out to be kind of important, and they actually integrate into evolution of societies. And it's this incredibly interesting, very intimate moving forward of how life evolves, and tools get really integrated in and really help shape where they go. And the other example that I'll give is I think that my personal take on science is I very much cherish and value a very interdisciplinary approach. My group is made up of physicists, chemists, and biologists. And the biggest challenge that I have is forcing them to interact, forcing them to talk to each other, forcing them to exchange ideas. But when that works, that's the most rewarding thing, because that's what creates novel perspectives. That sort of viewing a problem from all these different historically different perspectives. I think it is just a very fertile way to sort of create creativity. If you look at Phil and I mean, we're both chemists, but we're both sort of approaching, you could sort of make the argument, a similar ground. Because I chose to go from chemistry way into biology, and now I'm working my way back towards chemistry, and Phil's going the other way, starting as a chemist and now working towards biological molecules. And I think that approach, I think, is really powerful. And what I'll finally say is that I think that revolution is going to be driven by chemistry. I think that
so-
there's a lot of talk today about what a field people call synthetic biology, and it is, and people struggle with defining how is it different from all these other fields that have been traditionally developed and established over the past 20 or 30 years. You know, what synthetic biology is going to be, the revolution that synthetic biology is going to be driven by, that's going to become, is going to be done by people like Phil, who make molecules, who have power to build molecules, as soon as they start figuring out how to integrate them with biology. So the future isn't making molecules that sit in a test tube or that are very clumsy and can act as drugs because you inject them, but things that interact in a much more sophisticated and intimate way with biology.
Yeah, I can add my 2 cents to that question by giving you 2 examples that is well known. Everyone in this room know. So everyone knows the DNA sequencing technology has certainly revolutionized the life science. That's fair to say. But who revolutionized DNA sequencing? Staudinger. Staudinger invented the Staudinger reaction in 1921. And that is the tool for inventing the DNA sequencing now we use everybody. Of course, biologists may not care about Staudinger reaction, but that is a tool leading to revolution of life science, which is very difficult to predict, even though Staudinger did win the Nobel Prize in 1930s for his polymer science, but not for Staudinger reaction. The Staudinger reaction actually brought the revolution now that in the new world we are in. The second example I would give is a more futuristic, is the molecular machine has been given the Nobel Prize 2 years ago, and many challenged that Nobel Prize because we can't see how the molecular machine is going to be realistic, reality, right? But if you think about it, the only thing that would really make that happen is can synthetic chemistry molecules, can we make these molecules in such an efficient manner and create such a selective molecular machine? And that's the challenge now. And I am a very good friend with Ben Feringa. Ben Feringa, of course, won the Nobel Prize for molecular machine. And we have met 6 times in last 1 month together discussing synthesis and molecular machine. And guess what? He actually wants to collaborate with me, and I'm visiting him soon to discuss how to use synthetic new technology to make a new molecular machine using CH elevation. And who would have guessed that synthetic chemistry like me or doing CH elevation 15 years ago would has nothing to do with molecular machine that has the potential to revolutionize future industry. Although it's still too far away, but I would say it is possible. But in the end, it always comes back to the fundamental science is very, very important, right? So I think we have a very good discussion for that question. I hope whoever asked from the audience is very happy with these discussions. So the next question would be, what is the biggest bottleneck in organic chemistry? Somewhat related, but Phil, you can start.
I mean, I think selectivity and predictability is probably the most onerous issue facing organic chemistry at the moment, because much of the things you plan on paper simply don't work because of the idiosyncratic reactivities of organic molecules that are still not fully understood. But I think that's also the bottleneck is also what keeps us all with a job. So if there was this ability to predict everything, then the AI people would definitely put us out of a job. So I think the advantage here is that those bottlenecks exist, and that's part of the fun of the area, that they are so unpredictable and such high challenges.
Yeah, and Xiao Guanlei, maybe you can add.
Yeah, I agree with Phil. I think now one of the biggest bottleneck is we still don't fully understand the detailed mechanism of organic transformations.
Yeah.
So that's make us so difficult to predict the outcome of each single reaction. And sometimes, I think the organic chemistry still heavily rely on try and error approach. You try and then you see what happens. So I think, from this point of view, I think maybe physical organic chemistry, maybe in the future we have some new theories which can help us, predict the outcome of organic, reaction that will make us better. I think another one is very challenging to discover a completely new reaction. I think, we all agree,
Yeah. So for those audience who are not organic chemists, may not be able to appreciate why they say selectivity and development new reactions are the bottleneck. And I can give a simple analogy to you. It's as if you are building a house. You are a builder, but you are moving the bricks. and then control where the bricks go and make what kind of houses. And that's exactly what we are doing. But in when you move in the bricks, everything can be predicted by Newton's law. So you can control, you can see them. But when you're moving the atoms, we chemists, we are moving the atoms around and build the molecules. The molecules are the houses. The problem is Newton's law does not work for when you're moving atoms. Number two, you cannot see it. You see what I mean? And that's why it's so hard, okay? That's why it's so hard. But anyhow, so the third question goes to the chemibiologist more. Synthetic biology is emerging interdisciplinary, of course, but you showed us today how they could make new molecules, new proteins, engineer life. But how does is it possible to have any huge influence on the basic research in organic chemistry? Basic research in organic chemistry. That's a very good question.
Absolutely. I think this is what I alluded to a minute ago. I think the future revolution in synthetic biology is going to be driven by synthetic chemists. People making, we're now beginning to understand enough, both from a chemical and from a biological perspective, to begin to, I hate to use such a cliche, but to play God, to be able to come in and be able to build molecules that function, as like I said in my talk, within biological systems to augment, to expand, to manipulate in ways that are interesting to us. And I don't mean just for proteins, for drugs. I mean to evolve life that does new things.
Okay. Yeah, Peng, maybe you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Floyd's research is going to lead to is, for broadly defined artificial life, right? You start from artificial cell, you all the way to artificial life. Organic chemistry is a cornerstone for such a development, and along this development, you also have discoveries, right? You understand, actually better understand how life, different components of a cell or a human being been coordinated. Actually, as Jin Kuang just mentioned, they obey all the rules that chemists do, right? The atom level, molecule level, or the supramolecule level. They obey the same rules. And also, just after all the probes that Floyd showed have to be made by chemists, right? So it's really, although we are doing chemical biology, but almost all the chemical biology lab I visited, they have organic module, right? They need organic chemistry to push forward the bottleneck and also inspire us to either mimic or evolve life. That's my perspective.
Great.
Yeah.
So the next question will be probably broadly interesting to many audience is how does AI play a role in organic chemistry, synthetic biology, and drug discovery? So I will really throw this at Huang Liu. So you can tell us a little bit what you do briefly, and then try to address this question.
Sure. Actually, I'm not an AI expert since I only had AI experience for more than 1 year, okay? But I'm pretty sure that I had more understanding on AI, on science, right, than AI people. So my background was physics. So I actually understanding the world as all the atom, molecular, even smaller scale, like, electron, this type of thing. So before I start to use AI in my research, we heavily depend on the physics of law, like molecular mechanics, like quantum mechanics, to study the molecules' property, to understanding the binding, interaction, free energy, driven all the life science events, right? But the problem is, if we want to plug into this high accurate physics calculation like quantum mechanics into the big molecule like a protein, it's just impossible. Computer was not designed that way. Even, I don't know, even for quantum computing, come to true, whether we can do the high-level quantum mechanics calculation on the big proteins, right? Then, it's like when we start to think about, when we don't have this high-capacity computer, what do? We start think things mathematically, which went to AI, right? So when we plug the AI with physics, basically, I think it's created something probably going to be a breakthrough in our field, which we don't depend on the quantum mechanics calculation on everything. We just do certain calculation. Then we use the data we obtain from this calculation and train an AI model then this AI model becomes a god,
Sure, sure,
right? Eventually.
sure. So we're not going to lose jobs, are we?
No. Don't worry about that.
Okay, great. So all the students, I hope you hear, we are not going to lose our jobs, okay? So I think I will give the last opportunity also for chemists to respond. Maybe Phil, you can respond. Because we have-
I mean, I know we're short on time, so I'll just say that AI is not a threat to chemists. It's not a threat to any scientists. I think it's like drivers enjoy using cruise control in their car. It's like that. So it makes life easier. If you think about the way you search scientific journals, when I was an undergraduate going through chem abstracts in the library with paper, now you have SciFinder and Google Scholar, and it's much easier to find things. AI in the future, when it becomes better in machine learning and data mining, will be able to tell you what is known based on what can be predicted based on what is known, and it will make your life easier in terms of pointing you in the direction of where the innovation still remains. So it's great. I say bring it on.
If I could add one thing, I would, not to be argumentative, but I would almost argue that AI is incompatible with creativity. With bona fide, I mean, there's some things that AI is useful for and it's critical for, but those little nuggets that you need where suddenly everything changes,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's under the purview of AI, and that
Freud,
still might be
That's
stuck.
great. We want to hear provocative opinion. Different opinion is great, and we know
So
that's going to be coming from you always.
I think those moments of creativity may still be the purview of human beings.
Yeah. So we have 1 more minute left. I think we can be very brief. Everyone say something about, because this is a future lecture, right? So how do you see the future of organic chemistry, synthetic biology, or drug discovery in a very nutshell? Anything you can say about it, the future in synthetic chemistry, synthetic biology, or drug discovery, in the future trend, or anything you can say about it?
And in 5 seconds, I think the definition of innovation is doing more with less. And so in my lifetime, we're going to see, probably by the time I retire, the chemistry of today is going to look like the way they did math and computing 50 years ago.
Okay, good. That's a good answer. When you retire, that's future. Yeah. So it's been a long future. So Freud?
So an accelerated integration of the intimate interaction between synthetic chemistry and biology.
Okay.
So I really have high expectation about AI. I hope they really unleash intelligence to merge this field together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more rational, Adam. That's right.
I think organic synthesis and synthetic biology may merge in some point because they can generate a bigger impact or synergy. So for some molecule, maybe you have to combine both synthetic chemistry and synthetic biology in order to make them efficiently.
Yeah, thank you all for participating in this panel discussion. I think all of us, the audience, really enjoyed walking around in the maze of your brain and see how this brain works. It's fascinating how this brain works in their mind. And so I think we should call a conclusion, close. Should we close now? Oh, there any question from the audience? Yeah. Oh, please.
I want to ask, what do you think of the automatic synthesis of small molecules? Do you think it will replace the human beings in the lab to help us do experiments?
Phil?
Well, I mean, I think the problem with automated synthesis robots is it's a huge capital investment cost. How often do you replace your phone? Every year or two? Now, if I have a $10 million robot and the next year it follows Moore's law and it becomes much better, are you going to replace that $10 million robot? People are still quite cheap. And so I think there's on the one side Silicon Valley hubris, and on the other side there's economic reality that it is probably more beneficial to use robots and automation for the very, very menial tasks. But for discovery and anything that's really any level of difficulty above the most simple things like washing dishes, for the foreseeable future, I think it's still going to be up to humans to do this.